After she paid her husband's $150,000 debt, she overheard him and his mother plotting to replace her. She paid off her husband's $150,000 debt, thinking it would save their marriage. But what she overheard next shattered her world and changed everything. This is Dana's story of betrayal, strength, and the ultimate comeback. Stay tuned. Please support our work by liking this video and subscribe to our channel. It was supposed to be a peaceful evening in the quiet town of Franklin, Tennessee. The kind of town where people waved at strangers and front porch swings creaked into the night. Dana Mitchell believed she had it all: a loving husband, a cozy home, and a future worth building. But that illusion was shattered the moment she opened Mason's letter from the IRS. She didn't mean to snoop. She was just sorting the mail while Mason was out grabbing dinner. The envelope was thick and ominous, stamped "Final Notice." Curiosity quickly turned into dread. Her heart pounded as she read line after line. Back taxes, unpaid loans, a $150,000 debt in her husband's name. Her knees buckled and she slumped onto the couch, the paper trembling in her hand. "How could he hide this from me?" she whispered. They had been married 3 years. Not once had he mentioned financial problems. Mason always acted like everything was fine. Weekend getaways, expensive dinners, even a new fishing boat last summer. When he returned with takeout and saw the letter in her hand, his smile vanished. "I was going to tell you, Dana," he muttered, placing the food on the table. "When? After we lost the house?" Mason looked down, ashamed. "I didn't want to worry you. I thought I could fix it." Fix it? The man couldn't budget a grocery list, let alone climb out of 6 figures in debt. But Dana, raised by a single mother who taught her that loyalty came before everything, made a decision right then and there. She drained nearly all her savings, money she had worked for tirelessly as a pediatric nurse, and paid off Mason's debt within weeks. She didn't do it for praise, she did it for love, for the vows they made. What she didn't know was that while she was cleaning up his mess, Mason and his mother, Colleen, were already plotting behind her back. In that same month, Colleen started visiting more often. Too often. She always had something slick to say. "You're a good little helper, Dana," she'd purr, her southern accent thick with sarcasm. "But a man like Mason, he needs a real woman by his side." Dana let it slide at first, chalking it up to old-fashioned snobbery. But the way Mason started acting, spending more time away from home, locking his phone, avoiding eye contact, set off quiet alarms in her mind. Still, she told herself she was just being paranoid. She had just paid off $150,000 for this man. Surely that meant something. One evening, while folding laundry, Dana overheard Mason talking in the garage. The door was cracked open just enough. Colleen's voice came through clear as a bell. "You got what you needed out of her. Now it's time to bring Brittany in. She's young, she's beautiful, and she knows how to keep a man." Dana's world froze. She dropped the towel in her hands and felt her chest tighten. Her pulse raced, and her legs moved on instinct. She stepped back quietly, her heart splintering with every word she heard next. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a setup, and they thought she would never find out. But they were dead wrong. Dana sat in her car, parked just 2 blocks from her home, staring blankly at the steering wheel. Her hands trembled, and her breath came in shallow gasps. The words she overheard in the garage rang in her ears like sirens. "You got what you needed out of her." Mason and Colleen had used her, manipulated her love, her loyalty, and her bank account to wipe his slate clean. And now they were planning to toss her aside like yesterday's mail. She wanted to scream, cry, throw something. But instead, Dana did something else. She composed herself. She sat there in the silence until her breathing slowed, until her thoughts sharpened, and then she started planning. Back at the house, Mason was acting like everything was normal. He greeted her at the door with a fake smile, kissed her cheek, and asked if she wanted to watch a movie. The audacity made her stomach churn. "No, I'm tired," she said simply, avoiding his eyes. He shrugged, probably thinking his lies were still safe. That was his first mistake. Dana didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed beside him, listening to his steady, oblivious breathing, while staring at the ceiling, her mind spinning. She had sacrificed everything for him. Now she was going to take everything back, quietly, cleverly, and completely. The next morning, while Mason left for work and Colleen didn't show up for her usual uninvited coffee visit, Dana began gathering information. She pulled out old receipts, copies of financial records, and texts that documented her transferring money into Mason's accounts to cover his debt. She wasn't just his wife, she had become his unpaid financial savior, and she wasn't leaving empty-handed. She made an appointment with a discreet family law attorney in Nashville, a woman named Rebecca Klein, known for handling high-stakes divorce cases for women who had been burned. Dana laid out everything, every penny she'd paid, every document she had, and most importantly, the overheard conversation. Rebecca leaned forward, her voice low but firm. "If we play this right, Dana, you won't just walk away with your savings back. You might walk away with everything." That was the first time Dana felt a spark of hope. But hope wasn't enough. She needed evidence. Proof that Mason and Colleen were conspiring. So she got creative. She planted a voice-activated recorder in the garage, disguised in an old flower pot. Then another in the kitchen drawer. Mason always talked more when he thought she wasn't listening. It didn't take long. 3 days later, Dana reviewed the recordings. Mason's voice was clear. "She'll never see it coming. Brittany's already got her stuff packed. Once Dana's out, we're moving her in." Colleen replied, laughing, "Good." That woman served her purpose. Dana hit stop. Her hands were shaking, but not from pain, from power. Because now she wasn't just the betrayed wife, she was the woman they underestimated, and that was going to cost them more than they could ever imagine. Dana had never felt this kind of calm before. Not during her nursing exams, not even during the night she sat by a child's bedside praying they'd pull through. This calm wasn't peace, it was purpose. Each morning, she played her role to perfection. She packed Mason's lunch with his favorite snacks, kissed his cheek, and waved goodbye with a soft smile. He had no clue that every sweet gesture was soaked in strategy, because Dana wasn't just surviving now. She was preparing for war. The voice recordings she had collected were damning, clear enough to prove conspiracy and betrayal. Rebecca, her attorney, was building a case around emotional abuse, financial manipulation, and strategic fraud. She told Dana bluntly, "In Tennessee, judges take marital misconduct seriously, especially when there's this kind of evidence." But Dana knew that legal revenge wasn't enough. Mason and Colleen hadn't just tried to kick her out. They had mocked her, used her generosity as a stepping stone, and plotted to replace her like a broken appliance. She needed them to feel humiliated. To do that, she had to time everything perfectly. Dana started documenting even more. She printed bank statements, including the ones showing her life savings draining into Mason's debt. She contacted the loan collectors, got email threads, even wrote down the dates of every wire transfer she had made on his behalf. Meanwhile, Mason became bolder. He started working late more often, dressing sharper, wearing cologne that reeked of overcompensation. Dana pretended not to notice, asking gentle questions like, "You must be swamped lately. Should I pack dinner for you too?" "Oh no, babe," he'd answer, flashing that fake grin. "I'm just grabbing food with some guys from the office." She knew that the guys didn't wear cherry lip gloss. She confirmed it 3 nights later. While Mason was out, Dana drove to his office building and waited. She parked far enough to stay hidden but close enough to see the entrance. At 9:07 p.m., he walked out with her. Brittany, blonde, barely out of college, clutching his arm like a handbag and laughing like life was perfect. Dana took a photo. Just one. Then she drove home in silence, her knuckles white against the steering wheel. Not because she was angry, but because now she had everything. She had receipts, she had audio, she had photos, and soon she would have justice. The final move was putting on her best performance yet. That Sunday, she hosted a small dinner for Mason, Colleen, and a few neighbors. She cooked his favorite meal, southern fried chicken, honey cornbread, and homemade peach cobbler. She wore a dress Mason had once complimented, poured wine, and laughed along with everyone. Even Colleen raised a brow. "You're glowing tonight, Dana. What's the occasion?" Dana just smiled sweetly and said, "Oh, I guess I've just realized." Sometimes the end of something is really the beginning of everything. No one understood what she meant. Monday morning came like a thunderclap, but Dana Mitchell woke up early, calm and unbothered. She wasn't rushing to make Mason's breakfast. She wasn't ironing his shirt or packing his lunch. Today was different. Today was hers. Mason stumbled into the kitchen, scratching his head. No coffee? Dana smiled from the dining table, already dressed in a sleek navy pantsuit, makeup light but purposeful. I've got an early appointment, she said smoothly. You can handle a coffee pot, can't you? He blinked, clearly thrown off. Yeah, sure. Good, she said, grabbing her keys. Have a great day at work. By now, Mason was too caught up in his side-piece fantasy to notice the shift in Dana's tone. The guilt he should have felt never arrived, because he thought he'd already won. Brittany was texting him late-night hearts, and Colleen was busy picking out paint swatches for the renovation she planned once Dana was gone. Dana drove straight to Rebecca's office with the voice recordings, the photos, the financial documents, and her signed statement. Rebecca smiled as she looked through the evidence. Dana, she said, you didn't just prepare for a divorce, you prepared for a takeover. By Tennessee law, courts could award restitution in cases where one spouse was financially exploited. With the proof Dana had gathered, down to the timestamps on the wire transfers and Colleen's voice coaching Mason to ditch her, Rebecca believed they had a solid case for Dana to not only get her money back, but potentially receive spousal support and retain rights to their home. This is going to hit him like a truck, Rebecca said. That's the idea, Donna replied, standing tall. I'm done playing the fool. 2 days later, Mason came home to find Dana cooking dinner like nothing had changed. But on the kitchen table, in a crisp manila envelope, sat the divorce papers. He looked down, confused, then up at her. What's this? You tell me, Dana said, removing her apron slowly. Looks like the end of your little fairy tale. He opened the envelope, his hands shaking as he read. He scanned the pages, his eyes widening with every line. Financial restitution, recorded conversations, infidelity clause, a restraining order against Colleen, and a formal cease and desist to Brittany for harassment, because yes, Dana had caught her sending threatening DMs too. What is this? He stammered. This, Dana said coldly, is what happens when the woman you underestimated decides she's done saving you. Mason's face turned red with anger and disbelief. You were spying on me. I was watching you, she corrected. While you were plotting with your mama and playing house with a child, I was building my exit. And trust me, you're not going to like how this ends. He stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Dana exhaled slowly and walked over to her laptop. She opened a new document and began drafting her resignation letter. Being a nurse had been her life, but now she had other plans. Bigger ones. They tried to write her out of the story. Now she was about to publish the next chapter herself. Mason didn't show up at the house for 3 days. And for Dana, that was 3 days of peace. She lit her favorite lavender candles, danced barefoot through the living room, and played gospel music loud enough to drown out the memory of his lies. But while she sipped tea and slept soundly, Mason's world was unraveling. The moment he got served at his job, everything changed. His co-workers saw the envelope. His boss did too. The whispers started instantly. Within hours, Mason was called into HR. You failed to disclose a potential reputational risk, his manager said coldly, placing a printed copy of the legal documents in front of him. We don't tolerate this kind of behavior. You're being placed on administrative leave pending review. Just like that, his dream job, 6 figures in status, began slipping away. Meanwhile, Colleen was spiraling. Dana's attorney had filed a motion to ban her from the property due to harassment and interference in the marriage. Colleen showed up at Dana's doorstep the next morning, banging on the door like a lunatic. Dana didn't even flinch. She simply pulled out her phone and started recording. You can't do this. You were just some poor girl my son picked up out of pity, Colleen screamed. Dana didn't blink. Actually, I was the woman who paid off your son's $150,000 debt, and now I'm the woman making sure he answers for it. The police arrived minutes later and escorted Colleen off the property. Dana pressed charges for trespassing and verbal assault. She wasn't playing anymore. Back inside, Dana checked her email. Rebecca had sent updates. The judge had granted an emergency injunction. Mason was prohibited from liquidating any joint accounts or selling assets. That meant the house, the cars, and even the investment property they co-signed were now frozen. He couldn't touch a dime without Dana's approval. Later that evening, Dana received a message from Brittany, a poorly written, emotionally charged paragraph of insults and empty threats. "You're so bitter and washed up," it read. "He never loved you. You were just the starter wife. I'm the real deal." Dana chuckled and forwarded the message to Rebecca. "Add this to the file," she wrote. The next day, Dana walked into her favorite spa and treated herself to a full-body massage, a facial, and a hair appointment. For the first time in years, she looked and felt radiant. On her way out, she bumped into an old friend, Monica, who gasped, "Girl, what's going on with you? You're glowing." Dana smiled and replied, "I finally stopped watering dead plants." Monica laughed, not realizing the weight behind the words. That night, Dana stood on her front porch and looked up at the stars. Mason had built a kingdom on her back and now watched it burn, one piece at a time. And she was just getting started. Mason finally came crawling back, not with flowers or apologies, but with desperation written all over his face. He stood outside Dana's house in yesterday's wrinkled shirt, eyes puffy, voice shaky. "Can we talk?" he asked, as if the past month hadn't happened. Dana didn't answer right away. She stood in the doorway, arms folded, letting silence do the heavy lifting. Then she stepped aside without a word, letting him in like a guest, not a husband. He sat down at the dining table, the same one where she had once served him dinners cooked with love. Now it was bare. No candles, no comfort, just cold truth hanging in the air. "I messed up," he began, eyes darting around like a trapped animal. "I don't know what came over me. My mom, Brittany, I wasn't thinking straight." Dana tilted her head. "You weren't thinking when you plotted to replace me with a girl who still calls her dad to pay her rent?" He flinched. "I wasn't in my right mind." "No, Mason," she said, voice like steel. "You were in your true mind. That's what makes this worse." He tried again, weakly. "You know I'm about to lose everything. I'm suspended from work. Brittany's ghosted me, and my mom won't even answer my calls." Dana blinked slowly. "Sounds like karma's on a roll." He looked up, eyes pleading. "Can't we just start over?" She let out a dry laugh. "Start over? You built an entire fantasy around replacing me. You let your mother talk about me like trash. You used my money like it was Monopoly cash and turned your back when I was the only one who ever had yours." Mason looked away, ashamed, but still hoping for pity. Dana leaned in slightly. "You wanted to be free of me? Wish granted." She slid a second manila envelope across the table. This one contained her final settlement offer, one that gave her control of the house, both cars, and financial restitution over 5 years. It was ironclad and more than fair, considering the damage. "You sign this," she said, "and we don't drag each other through court for the next 2 years. You walk away quietly, I walk away in peace." Mason stared at the papers, knowing this was the best offer he'd get. His lawyer had already warned him. "Dana has everything. She's playing chess while you're still figuring out the rules." He slowly nodded. "Okay, I'll sign." Dana stood up. "Good, then get out." He looked at her one last time. "You used to love me." She gave him a small smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I used to believe you were a good man." As the door closed behind him, Dana didn't cry. She didn't collapse. She walked into her bedroom, lit her favorite candle, and poured herself a glass of wine, because the curtain had fallen. 3 months later, the final divorce papers were filed and stamped. Dana Mitchell walked out of the Nashville County Courthouse wearing a cream blazer, heels clicking against the marble floor, and a confidence so radiant it could melt steel. She wasn't just a woman who survived betrayal. She was a woman who rewrote the ending. The judge had ruled heavily in her favor. Mason was ordered to repay her the full $150,000 over time, along with monthly spousal support for the next 3 years. The court had even awarded her exclusive ownership of their home and one of the investment properties they had co-purchased during their marriage. When the news hit Mason, he didn't just lose his marriage, he lost the illusion of control. Brittany had long since blocked him, and Colleen was busy trying to salvage her own reputation after Dana's attorney exposed her manipulations in court. But Dana wasn't concerned with their mess anymore. She was focused on growth. With her newfound freedom and savings finally back in her own hands, Dana launched Reclaim Her, an online platform and podcast that shared real stories of women who rose from emotional and financial abuse to build thriving lives. Her first episode? When I paid off his debt and he tried to replace me, it went viral within 48 hours. Sponsors started calling. A book agent reached out. She wasn't just a nurse anymore. She was a voice, a brand, a movement. One evening, while recording an episode about financial literacy and relationships, she got a knock at the door. It was Monica, holding a bottle of champagne. "You did it!" Monica grinned. "You really did it." Dana popped the cork and smiled. "I didn't just get free. I made the pain pay me back, with interest." They toasted to power, peace, and second chances. The next day, Dana received a letter in the mail. It was from Mason. The envelope had no return address, but the handwriting was unmistakable. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No apologies, no tears. Just one line. "You were always more than I deserved." Dana folded the paper and placed it in her drawer, not out of nostalgia, but as a reminder, a receipt from a chapter closed. That evening, Dana stood on her back porch, overlooking her garden, with a warm mug of herbal tea. Fireflies danced through the dusk. She smiled to herself, not because everything had gone according to plan, but because she had finally learned the most important lesson of all. Sometimes the people you save will try to sink you, but if you rise anyway, smarter, stronger, and unshakably self-aware, you win. And in the end, Dana Mitchell didn't just walk away with her dignity. She walked into a life she built on truth, strength, and unbreakable self-worth. The end of her marriage was not her ending. It was the beginning of a legacy. Dana's story is a powerful reminder that betrayal doesn't break you. It builds you if you let it. She turned pain into purpose, reclaimed her power, and proved that walking away from what no longer serves you is the ultimate comeback. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. We bring you real-life stories that uplift, empower, and remind you that no matter how dark it gets, there's always a way to rise. Leave a comment below. Have you ever had to walk away from someone who tried to dim your light? We'd love to hear your story. Thanks for watching.